Hey, Emma here. In today's episode, we'll be joined by Daniela Bolzmann from mindfulgoods.io, and we'll be talking all about listing optimization. So that's how to create product detail pages that are optimized for SEO and conversion rate optimization. So if you want to create standout, scroll stopping product detail pages that convert shoppers into paid purchases, this is the episode for you. Let's jump in. Welcome to the latest episode of the Amazon Profitability Problem Solved podcast. I'm your host, Emma Bagley, and today I am delighted to be interviewing all the way from Peru, Daniela from Mindful Goods. If you are in the Amazon world, you will know Daniela, really active on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. So much value in her content, and so colourful and creative, and she's so passionate. She's an amazing woman in this space. So please do check her out on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. But yes, Daniela, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm just excited to be here as your introduction. That was fantastic. Thank you.
And as I said, she is calling in from Peru as I am in the UK. It is chucking it down with rain here in the UK and dark. And what's it like in Peru?
It is sunny summer today. We got lucky with the weather, but yeah, it's summertime.
So tell me more about your company and how you've built it, because I've been following you for a long time. Really powerful woman in the space. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you grew this amazing business.
It's so funny that we're finally connecting because I've been following you forever. And I think if we go back and look at our LinkedIn chat, I messaged you probably years ago, like, hey, let's connect. But yeah, I started my business. We might have started around the same time, but I started Mindful Goods around 8 years ago. And I think the first couple years was me trying to figure things out. We did full service Amazon marketing. So we would manage advertising campaigns. We would build chatbots. We would build landing pages. We were like growth hackers all the way through and through at that time. And after a couple of years, I started realizing that we were running in circles, creating custom strategies for every single client. And I really just wanted to hone in on one specific thing and become a master at it and be known for it so that we could help our clients move the needle on one thing and do it really well. And when I thought about the Amazon puzzle as a landscape, I look at it in 3 different sections. I look at Amazon in terms of logistics and figuring out your product and your pricing and the offer and getting it to Amazon and the shipping and all of that is like one bucket you need to figure out up front. And then there's 2 things that need to happen after that, and they both need to happen and they need to be done well. And one is traffic, so advertising and getting people to your listing. And the second piece of that is conversion, which is creative, SEO, getting found and getting people to click and add to cart. And so we decided to focus on the latter because personally, that's just the part that fills up my cup and fills me with joy. And it's the part that my team loves to do the most. And had I gone into the advertising side of things, I probably would have made way more money, but here we are in our little corner of the internet working on all these creative things for brands on Amazon. Specifically, our sweet spot is helping direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands that really understand branding and understand that what it takes on Amazon is an elevated branded look. And that is a very specific type of client. It's not every client. There are a lot of sellers out there, a lot of Amazon sellers that do really well, 7, 8, 9-figure brands that sell lots of commodity products, and they do it incredibly well. We, for the most part, are helping the direct-to-consumer brands that are brand focused, that are building a brand that they're probably going to exit at some point, and they're probably going to sell it to Nestle or some big player in the space. And so branding is a very important key element for that because branding is their entry point into retail. So if they can do online really well and they can execute and show that consumers really love their products online, they're going to get into more retail outlets faster. They're going to be able to scale their brand faster, and conversion is a big piece of that.
Thank you. So let's just dig a little bit deeper into that then. You've got brands that are on D2C, they're doing well on their own website, and they often use those same creatives on Amazon because they've spent a lot of money investing in their brands. It looks beautiful. It's on the website. They're really super proud of it because that's what they own. That's the real estate that they own. It's a big asset. And then moving over to Amazon. And then, an agency like yours or mine go in and we say, we need to optimize for Amazon. So how have you found that conversation with brands, and what results have you delivered to kind of prove that point? And I don't need to be swayed on this. I'm a firm believer in optimizing for Amazon, but sometimes it is a really difficult sell to brands.
Yeah, I will say we've experienced it time and time again. So I have great case studies by this point that I can show brands the before and after. So I will say that it's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see on Amazon when brands come to us and they're like, we don't know why it's not working. It should be working. There's enough data for us to know. Like, for instance, we worked with a supplement brand that was selling sea moss. And it was right after COVID, and sea moss was blowing up on TikTok because it was one of the things that people were taking after COVID. So we knew, and the brand knew, that because their sales on their Shopify site were fantastic. So they naturally were like, now it's time to move over to Amazon. Let's do it. They launched on Amazon, crickets. They were not getting any sales, and they were like, what is going on? So they came to us, we looked at their listing, and it was the exact problem that you're mentioning, where they had taken their Shopify images, which were beautiful. They had just put them onto Amazon, but they didn't do the SEO keyword research to infuse that into their copy. They didn't infuse it into their images. They didn't have show and tell images that were showing and telling and serving a function with every single image, which is something that you and I know do on a day-to-day basis with brands. And so what happens when a customer lands on an Amazon page like that is that they will see some pretty pictures that don't tell them anything. And then they get distracted with all the other advertising and they go and buy from your competitor. Because guess what? Your competitor's images show and tell something on every single image that gets them to put the item in the cart. That's the big difference. So we did that within 30 days. Their sales went up by, I think, like 600%, if I'm remembering that right. But within 30 days, it was refreshing their copy and their creatives. And it was like an instant flick of the switch. And so that's the thing. The only thing that made a difference, because they were already getting started with ads, but nothing was working. They had just copy pasted their stuff over. Yeah, it was a great product. There's no reason why it shouldn't have been performing, And so it like instantly fixed their listing. And since then, they've actually gone on to launch more products. So this is like a testament to, like, if you're on the right path, you just got to find the expert in your network that can just tell you what you're missing, like just fix it and move on, Yeah,
I mean, I obsess over looking at listings and with brands and the competitors with the brands that we're working with, because the message is so strong. It's not always received well by the brands, but the message is strong. Like, Amazon's a marketplace. You're shoulder to shoulder with your competitors. Because shoppers are one click away from your biggest competitor. And if they're doing that conversion piece better, then they're going to convert, and your competitors are going to get that sale. When a shopper goes on your website, it's your brand. They're immersed into your brands. It's a different experience. You are in the super, super competitive Amazon space, and you need to have a marketplace strategy for Amazon, don't you? So yeah, okay. And that's a great case study there. Thank you very much. So what would you say then is the single biggest creative mistake costing Amazon brands profitability right now? And why do you think it's still so common?
I mean, that is probably the biggest mistake that we see day in and day out, is brands copying and pasting their stuff over. Beyond that, I will say that there's two different mindsets when I look at Amazon selling, right? And I don't think either one is wrong. I just think both can be elevated, right? And so when you look at Amazon, there is a ton of Chinese sellers that sell on Amazon. And you can almost always tell which listings are theirs because they have weird, funky names, and the copy is always grammatically incorrect, and the images are weird, right? And so whenever I see that, there's always an opportunity there, right? That, like, if you can do it better and do it well, and it'll be received better by the audience. And so that's the challenge, right? Is that a lot of sellers will go up against these Chinese sellers, and they're trying to stay within budget and try to do things really cheap, just like the Chinese do. And what happens when you do that is you get these listings that are done on Fiverr. And nothing against like the freelancers that are selling their services on Fiverr is like great. I mean, there's a market for that too, but oftentimes it's not done well, and when it goes live on Amazon, it looks cheap, it looks unfinished, it's not going to resonate with the consumer. Now, do I think you need to do something like what we do, which is like all the bells and whistles? Not in a lot of cases, not in most cases, to be honest. Like if you have a commodity product and you're selling against the Chinese, you just need to level up better than they are, right? So find the Fiverr freelancers that are doing an elevated job, or find the freelancers in the US that understand your market. Or if you're in the UK, find the UK teams that understand your market so that your creative can just be like a level up. It doesn't even need to be anything crazy, you know? I think what we are looking at from our lens at Mindful Goods is we're dealing with teams that have they have financial backing, they have investors, they have retailers to consider. They're already working with like Walmart and Target, or they want to get into Walmart and Target. And so they really have to consider their brand from day one. This is a very important element for them. So they can't go launching onto Amazon and not looking professional, right? Because they need good reviews in order to get into retail. So I think who you're choosing is a big thing. The other thing I will say, and this is probably like the hardest thing, or the struggle that I see with most founders, is communicating their wishes to designers. And oftentimes that is in great creative direction. So there's this middle piece, right, that's missing from a lot of the experience that most people go to if they're going to a freelancer. The freelancer is a designer. They might not be a creative director. And so what happens when you work with an agency that specializes in something like we do is we know all the steps that it takes to get it done. And we have team members like a pod that know how to do each step as an expert at an expert level. So we're taking in as many data points as possible that are going into that creative strategy. We're assessing the competitive analysis. We're pulling the search query reports. We're pulling the PPC reports, which is your advertising reports, which tells you all of your best converting keywords. We're pulling as much competitive data upfront as possible. I guarantee you, if you took those same data pieces and you gave them to a freelancer on Upwork or on Fiverr, they would probably not respond to your message after that, because they'd be like, what is this? I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm here to design. Like, tell me what to design. I'm going to design it. So that's not the way that we operate. The way that we operate is we need to look at the data to understand what we can even design. And then we need to speak to that customer, which you speak about this all the time. Like, we need to know who we're talking to, and we need to be in the room with that person and know what they're saying. The only way we can know is if we extract the reviews, extract the keywords, extract all of that data, put it into a pile, make some sense out of it, and then we can tell the designer, this is what you need to design because this is what our customers need to see in order to buy, right? And that's the piece that's missing. That's the piece that's missing. And from the biggest agencies to the freelancers, like, that is the piece that is missing across the board.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything you've just said there. I would add, which I know you believe this as well, is it's not just having a great graphic designer, because a great graphic designer knows how to make things look beautiful, but doesn't necessarily know how to make a listing sell. So you can give that designer great copy. So you've gone through the creative strategy process, you've got the great copy, you pass it to the designer, and the designer makes it beautiful, doesn't make it sell through like the messaging hierarchy, the display of the text. So yeah, it's having those special, if you've got the budget to have those kind of specialists. But yes, thank you. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that. Thank you.
To your point, great design is the expectation, right? Like, great design is the expectation that every brand should have at this point, because as consumers, we are used to seeing great design. We are used to Apple. We are used to all these incredible brands of the world, right? So that shouldn't be like an optional factor. That should be the expectation and the baseline, right? And then obviously everything else builds on top of that.
Yeah. And we'll talk later on in the podcast about how we kind of make sure that we're testing and we're evolving the designs as we gather more data, more intelligence. So yeah, we'll touch on that later as well. Okay, so you're from the other side of the world, US, Peru, and I'm here in the UK, and we both work with clients across that water. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about that, about the importance of having your listings optimize for the local marketplace. So if you were a UK brand, just transferring your listing over to the US isn't going to work, even possibly within the UK to Germany, very close neighbors to Germany. I believe that if you're going to intentionally invest a significant amount of money to start marketing to another country, you need to go through that creative strategy process again. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about how you work within your agency to make sure that your listings resonate and convert in the local country marketplace. I know we talked a lot about this before hitting record, but yeah, let's dig into this a little more.
This is the part that fascinates me so much because I feel like this is such a strong expertise of yours. So I have taken so many notes from you, and I think it's important that we share and talk about them here. So when we talk about the local markets, one of the things that I know that you brought up previously was how even dogs, if we look at a dog listing, I'm just going to share my screen because I have an example for us to take a look at. Okay, so we worked with a client called Best Pets for Life, and you were telling me there's certain things in the UK market that you would have to consider if you were going to launch this same brand in the US market. You were saying that the dogs are different breeds of dogs in the UK. And so when we did our research, we were researching top last year's top dogs in the US, right? And we made sure we had a mix of dog sizes, always a mix of dog colors. Same thing with the cats. Whereas for the UK, you would want to do that specifically, right? And you were saying, and this is something I don't know if I would ever pick up on, because I think this is such an insight that's local to a market that maybe you wouldn't pick up on it immediately, was you were saying smaller dog breeds are way more popular in the UK, right?
Yeah, and more moving into Europe as well, when your houses are smaller, so you have a smaller dog. So what we did when we were working with one of the brands that huge in the US and then considerable size in the UK and Europe, we started looking at their reviews, and we were looking at the reviews of the UK versus the US, and we were noticing that the UK consumer was talking about different dogs within their reviews, completely different to what the US reviews were saying. So we were looking at the US listing that had just been transferred over to the UK. The dogs on those images just weren't dogs that we see frequently here. It's not a popular dog here in the UK. So immediately you're creating emotional kind of distance there between, they are super cute dogs there on this listing. So cute. But, the point of images is to convert, tell a story,
Right.
connect with the consumer, and, get conversions, get the sales. And if you, as a shopper, land on a listing and you don't connect with the house, with the garden, with the dog, with the cat, it automatically creates that kind of distance, which causes friction, which causes potential mistrust, and therefore you don't buy.
You said something else that was really interesting to me. The houses, the gardens, right? And this is something that I know what an American aesthetic housing looks like, right? But one thing that I learned from you that I don't know if I intentionally would have pointed this out or picked up on it, is sometimes, as Americans might have bigger houses, and not to say always bigger gardens, but might have a different looking garden, right? And so something that I might see as or you might see as a UK listing, to me, I might feel for some reason it looks off to me. It looks generic. You were showing me an example of a garden earlier, and I was my instant reaction was oh, that looks it looks generic, was the word that came out of my mouth. What I mean by that is it looks like a stock image that looks fake, so I can't relate to it. And to you, it didn't look fake. It looked like that could be my garden because I live in the UK and I know it. Like, you instantly identified with it. But that's when we talk about these nuances that are cultural, local nuances in your creatives, that's what you want to understand. And that's where like testing can come in and be your best friend, right? If we were to test some images on PickFu and say, we only want to test this with US audience, we only want to test this with UK audience, we could start to understand which images are resonating better and why. And the other thing you mentioned was like how you guys have smaller apartments. And so you wouldn't ever have smaller houses, smaller environments, right? So like you wouldn't ever have like a zoomed out photo of a really large home. Whereas like if we were selling, let's say, luxury equipment, exercise equipment, something like that in the US, we might actually show, like, think of Peloton in the US. They market these like incredibly stunning, beautiful houses that not as many people have in the US as you might think, but that's their whole marketing angle and everybody wants that. So they would buy it. They would feed into it in the US, right? Like, we want what we can't have. So we would buy it just because we're going to have that big house one day, you know? So like it's a different mindset almost. And it's those little nuances that like I think we only learn by like sharing with each other and understanding. I'm so thankful to you because I'm learning these little bits. And as the way I would get around this, okay, if we were designing something together, let's say we kicked off a project, you and I, and you were working on the European countries and we were working on the US, but we didn't want to spend double the cost on doing the photo shoot. What I'm hearing is we need to like pre-vet our models to make sure that the models resonate with all the countries. And they don't look, particularly like they're from one country or the other. We need to pre-vet the space, right? So like no zoomed out photos of very large things. Keep it zoomed in the frame so that it feels like that living environment could be anywhere, and use props that are easily achievable for all markets, So that could be some easy takeaways from this, for sure.
I suppose as well, if we're talking houses as well, there's the cars as well. The American car versus the UK car versus the roads in Europe are really different as well. So
Totally.
if budget was super tight, we'd really need to think that through as well. But what images are going to translate across those different country marketplaces. And like you say, even if it's just zooming in so that you get in different angles to represent those kind of different marketplaces. Mm-hmm. Going back to what you were saying about the diversity of the people as well, that's something that's really important to be able to show in those images the people and what they look like in those different countries as well, and to respect the diversity within those countries as well.
Yes, so often please can we take like a moment of silence for this and like do like a little like clap so that we all intentionally start choosing models that are more diverse. There's nothing more obvious to me as like a clearly brown Latina who grew up in California, who travels the world. When I see a brand that has only white models, I'm like, hello, like we're here too, So I notice it every single time a client comes in, and there is data to prove that by having more diverse models in your branding, that you will sell more. Like, this is proven by now. So I think that all brands should be open to this. We should be exploring it. We should be testing it. Just the same way we would test having different dogs. It's the same concept we need to apply when we're choosing any model for our brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it'd be very exciting if we work together on a big project across the water. Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit more about testing as well, and the importance of it and the process for doing it, and when it's right to do it and when it's not right to do it shortly. But can you just talk me through this example while we're on? Because I'd love for you to give your perspective. I mean, I'm just looking at the super cute dogs, to be honest. But can you just talk through why, like one of the listings perhaps on this storefront, what's good or bad about it? And we can have a conversation and see if there's any differences of opinions.
So this is their storefront, to be fair. Mm-hmm. This is not their PDP. And this probably isn't the best example because I think what they came to us with wasn't that great to begin with. So if you're going from nothing to something amazing, like it's always going to perform better. But in terms of anytime we're building a storefront, we're always opening up with a strong, unique selling proposition. In this scenario, we wanted to lead with some hero products and we wanted to make the navigation super clear in addition to adding some movement. You'll notice throughout the entire thing, we add movement because most oftentimes when you hit an Amazon storefront, it's static and cold. And so there's no movement. There's no reason to stay on the page. And so we just wanted to create these subtle animations to be like, oh, this is custom. This is cool. This makes me want to keep looking. But you'll notice there's two different ways to navigate this right off the bat. And we're not so much saying, do you have a dog or do you have a cat? But we're showing you a dog and a cat. So you can immediately choose which direction you're going to go simply by which type of pet you have. But let's say you kept scrolling because you were curious. Now you can shop by function, right? And that's the other key thing. Making it super easy for the shopper to get to exactly what they are trying to find as quick as possible is the name of the game on your storefront. Right? If you have them going down all these different rabbit holes and they can't find what they're looking for,
Click, click.
You're going to lose them. Yeah, we don't want you going click after click after click. We just want you to find the thing, buy the thing, right? So it gets harder when you have a larger catalog. So we need to think through what is the simplest way for people to find what they're looking for. And then the rest of it is kind of breaking down, like here's our top bestsellers for cats and by function, and then same thing for dogs, right? So it's kind of the same thing, but repeated in a different way so as not to confuse the shopper. But in a sense, the entire function or thing that we're trying to do as quickly as possible is help you understand what this brand is, what they sell, and which is the right product for your pet. And if you can do that formula, doesn't have to be a pet brand, but if you can go through that exercise for any storefront, you're going to increase your average cart value. You're going to increase your conversion. You're going to, and really the storefront is a great place to do that because we don't have all these advertisements like we do on our product page. So it can be a really great strategy for brands to send traffic here if they do it well. And what's even better than this is if you can have a really great subpage. So a subpage can be very narrowly focused towards a specific product line or product that you're trying to promote because you know that certain people are trying to solve this problem. Just send them to the page that solves that problem. It's like sending them to your product page, but without all the advertising. So, yeah.
I mean, that page, that storefront is absolutely stunning for all the reasons that you've said. But to add to that as well, like, it's all about best life for your pets. It's happy and healthy. And I don't need to read any of that text because the emotion of the love between a dog or cat parent and their loved one is so super strong. If you scroll down a little bit, that dog jumping into the arms, it's healthy, it's full of vitality. It's go off a little bit, Daniela, the video at the top. It's beautiful, it's love, it's connection, and that's how we feel about our animals. And so I haven't probably read any of that text. I know, everybody reads a page differently, but I'm immediately connected. Like, I want my dog and cats to feel the love that I've got for them. And I'm just hooked into this brand already because of those reasons. It's just showing what I want to show and feel with my pets. So I'm hooked on this brand already.
And interestingly enough, with this one, there was a couple learnings that we had because we did test some other layouts where we were trying to decide, like, do we show the family of product at the top? Or do we lean on the human emotional connection? Or do we, what is the strategy here, right? And actually in testing, what we learned was that showing the family of product as quickly as possible is a great way to instill trust in the brand. And so we moved that into the A+ content on the product page so that as you're scrolling on the product page, you see that this brand has so many different products. And you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, this must be a legitimate brand if they have all these products, right? So that's the message that we got from the customers on PickFu as we were running polls to try to understand, do we do this at the top or do we do the human connection, which is the emotion, which I would think would resonate more. and we called the test like humans versus cats, because it was like the human connection versus like just showing the family of product with cats, and in that case the family of product won, but not because of the cats, just because it was a family of product. So good takeaway there.
That kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier as well, not only about the importance of testing, but Amazon's a marketplace, and there is a slight distrust. There's not a distrust of Amazon. There's a distrust of shoppers of, is this a Chinese product? Is this just some kind of fly-by-night type product? Or is this a brand that I want to invest my money in and give, especially like for your pets? Do I want to give this to my pet? You need that kind of credibility. Whereas if you were on a D2C site, there's a reason they've landed on your D2C site. You've got that whole site then to continue to build that trust. Whereas on Amazon, you slight distrust with the shopper and the brand, and that like we've talked about, you're one click away from the competition. So you've got to build that brand credibility, sell the product range, and connect with them. There's so much strategy that comes into designing for Amazon, isn't there? So much that needs to go into that whole thought process.
Absolutely.
So let's dig a little deeper into, you've mentioned PickFu a few times. So let's talk about the testing process, but also, you don't just test once. So what is the process that's recommended, or you would recommend for brands that have got some budget? And then we can talk about options for brands that don't have budget for testing. So like PickFu, Product Opinion, like what is it that you would you test everything continually? What would be the strategy?
Okay, I'll give you the lightweight version, and then I'll give you the full scale version. So we'll go through our playbook so that everybody can see what are the things that we would look at. And this stuff can be modified depending on what you're trying to understand, right? What is the insights that you're trying to gather? And so if we look at our playbook here, this is the things that we are testing. So the very first thing that every brand should always test is going to be their main image. It's the lowest hanging fruit. I always say, if you're going to split test your title first, because it's the highest impact, lowest lift. You don't have to design anything. So obviously start there. We've seen up to 990% increases in sales just by title testing. So highly recommend it. All these stats we publish on our site. So go check it out on our metrics page. But you
Can I
ask
a question there?
Yeah.
About the cycle. Sorry, Daniela, because we had somebody say something different, a different opinion on the show this week. So when you talk about title testing, is this on PickFu, or is this on Amazon Experiments?
This is on Amazon Experiments.
Okay.
We'll go straight to there. So what we do is we build our title with something like Data Dive, where we are doing what's called Battle of the Titles. And it's bringing in, any other insights from, the search query reports or from their advertising campaigns. We build options of titles that we think are going to get better reach, that are better structured. And then we will test them on Manager Experiments title testing. Now, Manager Experiments title testing takes time. Which is one of the more frustrating things about it. It can take up to 12 weeks. It can take as little as 4 weeks to get the first set of data back. But that's a long time for brands to wait. And so you should still do that process. It's a great exercise. It's very fruitful. It can generate lots of extra revenue for you by helping you get found in more organic searches. So highly recommend. And I do think that's a great place for all brands to start, because they don't have to spend the money on a designer. That being said, the next best thing is going to be your main image. Do I see as much sales gains? No. We're looking at like 550% increases in sales maximum, but this is where you're getting your click-through gains. This means people find you through your SEO that you just did with your title testing. You're showing up in the search results. Yay. How do you get more people to click on your main image instead of the competitors? You do that with your main image. There's only so much you can do with your title. There's only so much you can do with your offer, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with your main image. And so this is where we want to really play and have fun and use different angles of your product, add shadows to your product, add eye candy to your product. There's lots of different things that you can do. And just to show you some examples, let's see if we have some main image examples here that we can pull up. I don't know if I had them on this page. Oh, like this, right? This here, we were talking about this CMOS brand earlier. We added some badges as callouts, but guess what? These little badges also show the 3 ingredients that are in here that, guess what, are also high intent keywords that people are searching for. They're searching for Irish moss, they're searching for bladderwhack, and they're searching for burdock root. Lucky for us, we happen to have all 3 in our product. But if we didn't show it on the front of the bottle, how would Amazon know that these ingredients are in our product? We have to serve it up to Rufus, serve it up to the consumer so they can read it really quickly and know that it's coming with CMOS, but it's also coming with these other amazing things. We're getting these extra organic searches out of it. Also, pro tip, if you are selling a supplement, people want to know, is it a powder? Is it a capsule? How big is the capsule? They want to understand that in relation to the product. So that's a big thing. We want to make sure that we are showing as much as we can in our products. There's lots of different ways that you could do this. This is just one way. And the idea here with main images is we want to create lots of different ways. So what we do at Mindful Goods now is we have an AI that's trained on our best performing main images. So we take the client's product, we drop it in, it generates 15 to 20 images in 2 minutes. And that gives us a base point of ideation of like, okay, we could have these call outs. We could have the bottle at an angle. We could have the pills floating from the sky. We could, like, these are all the crazy ideas that we can have. Now let's go look at the competitive set. Let's kind of see what else they're doing. When they're zigging, how do we zag? What else can we do here, right? Once we have those ideas flushed out, we can then bring them into a tool like PickFu, and we can split test them in 30 minutes and understand which ones are resonating most with the customer. Once we understand which ones are resonating most, and by the way, they're also resonating more than our original image that's on Amazon, then we have a higher level of confidence to put that into an experiment on Amazon, rather than just saying, I think this image is pretty, let's test it on Amazon, which is very risky, right? And I'll be the first one to say, like, I have been totally wrong when I guess which images are going to win on PickFu. I have been so wrong. So I'm just putting this out there. We all need to be testing, because we as someone of a owner of a creative agency, this is creative every single day. I would love to stroke my own ego and say, I can pick a winner with confidence. I'm sure you would too. But us being the closest founders being the closest to their product oftentimes are wrong, And so my job, I've realized, my job is not to guess. My job is now to present the data. And if you as the founder decide that you want to follow that data, you can follow the data. If you decide, I don't like what that data says, I still think I like this for my brand, you can do that too. But at least we gave you the data, right? So that's the next best thing, is testing with your main image. Now, there's 2 different ways that we look at testing our main image. The first thing is, if we generate some AI images and we think they're up to snuff, we will just polish them off, test them in PickFu, and get them on Amazon as quick as possible, because we know it's going to be a quick win for the founder. But that doesn't stop us from creating the high polish main image that we know we want at the end of the day. So we take those learnings, we then create custom images that are done by hand by a human designer, that we figure out, okay, these are the learnings from AI. This is what we ideally want to see. We then create those options and test them as well. And so what we're doing here is test 1 is going to test all the main images to understand which main image is resonating best. Test 2 is to get a baseline of the original main image that the client has right now on their Amazon versus 2 baseline competitors that are selling a very similar product that are doing well. Then we're going to test our winning variant from test number 1 in this same scenario from test number 2 to make sure that we are increasing the baseline. This is the tricky part here, because most people would think, well, my image needs to beat my competitors. That's not fair, because you might be competing against a top seller in the space that's been selling for 10 years, that everybody knows them and they're a brand name, household name. They're like a day-to-day household name. That data is always going to be skewed. You're never going to beat that person. What you can do is level up, and you can take more market share. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show that, like, hey, in this test number 2, We only got 5 of the votes. But in test number 3, where we tested our new winning main image against the competitive set, we actually got 15 votes. That's huge. That's a win all day long. We may not be the best seller in the space, but that's always going to be a bias test. So that's what you're trying to do in that scenario. It's important to understand what you're trying to do with each test. Otherwise, you can feel defeated, or you can feel like your image isn't good enough, or you're not heading in the right direction. You're absolutely headed in the right direction with that context. The other fun thing, which I don't know if I'm allowed to share this, but we have access to, I think it's a beta, but Claude is connecting to PickFu. So we can just take our polls, drop them into Claude, and get quick analysis, and we can start asking it, prompting it with questions to better understand the consumer based on their responses. So what we're going to be releasing very soon, and as soon as we have it, we can release it in your show notes, but we're going to be releasing an entire deep analysis of all of the brands in the supplement space that we worked with, that's taking all the best practices, all the insights from PickFu versus Amazon data and performance, and putting them into one master downloadable type of learning experience for people to understand that, which those best practices can apply to other categories too. So that'll be fun.
That is incredible, Daniela. Posted on that. Yeah, thank you.
That'll be insane. Like we've been digging into it for like a month, and it's like going down a rabbit hole. It's unbelievably exciting. Okay, so the next thing after you've tested your main image, the next thing that I would be testing is your product image stack. Now, there's 2 pieces of this. The and let's just say this, for the lightweight version, the only thing I would say every brand has to do and should do always is the main image testing. The rest of it is going to be where you're getting micro gains, right? So I don't think you have to. It's not mission critical, but this is the rest of the playbook that we do because we find it insanely powerful, and we choose when and how and where we're doing it in what scenarios based on the information that we're trying to glean as we're designing. So one test that you might run is understanding your current image stack. So this is for a brand that is probably a little bit, has a good set of product images, is selling well, but wants to level up. We need to understand, well, what is working today? What is working from your image today? Because something is working, right? So we don't want to throw away those learnings. So we would upload these to PickFu, and we would ask it, which images from this set are most impactful to you, or would most convince you to buy, and why? And based on that analysis, we could understand, and their votes, it'll tell us these 3 images are the most impactful for these reasons. These ones are duds. They need to be done better, or we can throw them away, right? And there's a lot of nuance in there, but that's what we're trying to understand at the end of the day, so we can bring it into our next design phase.
If they've worked with companies such as yours or mine, we're hoping that they are tip top already because they've gone through that creative strategy process. But there's always still, testing iterations, always.
If I guarantee you, and I know this for a fact, if you ran our images through that we designed with data for a client, it'll still give you back things that could be better. It'll always give you back things that could be better because you're asking it to, right? And so like there's an 80-20 rule to this too. Like if you do 80% of the heavy lifting up front and you do this right, you're going to see 80% of the benefit. The 20% other benefits that you're going to see are going to be from like improving it little, but the other little things that you're going to tweak and change over time. So just doing this whole refresh with your SEO and your product images and your A+ content and your storefront all at once a year or once every other year, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game. You're already hitting that 80% of gains. So you can spend other time in other areas and maybe come back for seasonal refresh or the things that you need to refresh every year. That's where you'd get that 20% gains. Like, let's level this up, right?
Yeah. Or if there's products that are really underperforming, you can't work out why, or the data's suggesting conversions going down. Again, we could like bring those testing processes forward.
Absolutely.
To get some feedback.
So the next poll that I would recommend is a competitor poll. And this is where we're taking our image stack and we're running it against 2 competitors. And we do this after we have our designs. Because to your point, we want to understand now, okay, now we've done some really high quality designs. How can they even get better? Right? Because if we did this without our designs, we're taking what the competitors are doing, but we're not putting ourselves in the game. And from my perspective, I'm like, okay, let's put ourselves in the game too, because we're in this now. We're in the race. We have great images. Even our like worst drafts are usually better than what the client already had anyways. So we'll put those against two competitors and we'll try to understand everything holistically so that we can go into a feedback session with a client with strategical suggestion based on their ideal audience, right? Like, we shouldn't be going into feedback sessions and just like looking at it and being like, I wish or I think it should be this. No, we should be able to point at data and say, actually, it looks like 30% of the consumers from this poll said that these colors are not contrasting enough. So let's think about how we can do that, and let's come up with some solutions around how we could do that. And then we have very pointy, actionable feedback for the designers versus telling a designer, that's ugly, or I want it to pop, or,
I'm sure you found as well, with all due respect, when it's a founder-led brand, they're so passionate about what they feel are the most important features of their product, and they want them front and center, when actually that's not necessarily what's going to sell the product, market product.
And that's where gathering that data up front, like we talked about, is so important before you even start this process. But one thing you can do in that data digging process, if you're a founder and you feel this way, like that you're too close to your brand and it's your child, that's okay. But here's one tip that I don't have in this playbook that I recommend to those types of founders. By the way, I am one of those founders, so I totally get it. I am way too close to my baby all the time. But what I would do is I would take the link to your Amazon listing and I would drop it into a PickFu poll and I would ask 50 Amazon Prime shoppers, what is missing from this listing? How could this listing be better? And you will be amazed. You will be amazed. And that's the easiest thing to do. Another thing that I've done in the past is I'll run a product opinion poll. And I'll have it do 5 videos of people like recording their screen, looking at my listing, and you get to hear them talk for 5 minutes about your product. And it is, as a founder, it is the most painful, excruciating process to listen to a complete stranger rip apart your listing. But it is the best experience for you to go through because it will teach you that you're seeing something totally different from what the consumer is seeing. And you have to understand your consumer and you have to see it through their eyes. And that's where the unlocking happens, where you can say, okay, I got it. Now we need to pay attention to data. So yeah, let's finish the last piece of the playbook is testing your A+ content. So this is the same thing. We'll take our design and we'll run it against two competitors who have equally good designed A+ content that are performing well in the category. We don't want to test against people that have, basic or ugly A+ content because that's not fair, right? So we want to find people in the space that are top notch, that are who we are striving to take market share from, and we want to test our content against theirs. And again, our goal here is not to beat them in the test. Our goal is to figure out what is resonating with consumers and how can we take those insights and better our design in that design process. Because sometimes you're just not going to be able to beat those competitors, and that's okay. But we can always make our design better and have it resonate better and have it convert better. And then that's what you're going to upload to Amazon. So you have a higher level of certainty of your performance. And we also did an analysis of, we're doing it again with the supplements, but we did an analysis last year of like the last 50 winning polls that we had seen on Amazon or on PickFu. And we tracked them into Amazon to see what percentage of those saw an increase in sales. 75% of them saw an increase of sales. So for me, doing testing with PickFu or Product Opinion or IntelliView, whatever your tool of choice, for us, it's PickFu. Doing that testing is going to help you have a better understanding of whether your design is going to perform or not perform when it hits Amazon. So for us, it's a necessary evil. You got to do it. I know it costs extra money. It's not that much money at the end of the day. If you're just doing the main image testing, you can do it for like less than $50, So it's just such a great activity that everybody should be doing. And so I have, do you want to share these? You want me to share these pro tips really quick if they are going to use
absolutely.
a testing tool? Okay, here's some of the things that we've learned with our testing. One, A+ content. We design mostly for all clients in premium A+ content at this point. So it's not fair for us to upload our design mockup with the carousel. So our team, we just know we're going to crop just the homepage of that design to test it against the other homepage designs. And that's the way to make the test more fair and unbiased. So just remember that you want all of your images that you're testing to be all the same size ratios. Otherwise, you're going to get a biased test that people are voting for your competitor because they had like a much bigger design, or voting for you because you had a much bigger design. Make it fair. Also, use competitors that are the best fit. So like, for instance, like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to choose competitors that are doing well but have bad design, because that's not fair either, So pick relevant competitors that are doing well in your space that have good design, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do, is level up your design. We always tag our polls in PickFu so we can easily click and find things. It also is going to make it easier for us to analyze things with AI, which is fantastic. And then this is my number one tip I have for everybody, is like, when you are crafting, this is in any testing tool, when you are crafting in your poll and you're putting the question that you're going to ask people, don't say this product. So like, for instance, which stack of images for this product would most convince you to buy this product? Well, what if I can't tell what the product is by the pictures? Guess what's going to happen? You're going to have 30 people leaving comments like, what is it? I don't know what that is. And then you just wasted your whole poll. Instead, you want to say, which stack of images for this dog probiotic would most convince you to buy, and why? And then you're going to get people going, oh, great, dog probiotic. I would choose this one because blah, blah, blah. They don't have to think about it. They know it's a dog probiotic. They're moving on. When we do product image stack polls too, we don't put in the main images. So that's another pro tip that I need to add here. We just do the rest of the product image stack against product image stack. We do separate testing just for main images. So everything is like very focused on the thing that we're trying to achieve.
Well, Daniela, that is so much value there for the listeners. Thank you so much. I mean, we'll always come across that challenge of brands saying, it costs so much money, and how often do we need to test? And if feedback comes back, that means there's going to be another design cost. Unfortunately, Amazon, you have to invest in Amazon. So if you don't test and evolve and continue to do that process, you will just be losing out on sales, or spending money on PPC and bleeding money on PPC, and you're declining profitability. So yes, it's a cost, but being on Amazon is a cost. It's an investment, isn't it? So continually test, and is how to win the game the long term, isn't it?
I would look at it like this, right? If you're spending $2,000 a month or $10,000 a month on your advertising, but you're only getting, let's just say 50 orders. What if that same amount of advertising gets you double the amount of orders every month? That's the power of having content that actually works. It's not the advertising that's getting them to buy. The advertising is getting them in the room. It's the creatives that's getting them to put it in the cart. So, and 90% of what we take in as humans is visual. So it's all the visual creative. The SEO is going to get people in the room. The advertising is going to get people in the room. It's the creative that's going to get them to put it in the cart and buy it and take it home. So we got to remember that. It's the same thing when we go to the grocery store. Like, we picked up the boxes that look pretty, it's the same thing. And then we check the ingredients and we're looking at the ingredients. So make the ingredients right there on the visual, it's whatever's the human element, you got to bring it, you got to bring that human piece, that human psychology to your digital pages.
This is my favorite part of the podcast. So there is no right answer. Okay. It's just what comes first in front of mind. And then, so you say true or false, and then you give like a one-liner as to your reason for that decision. So again, no pressure. There is no right or wrong answer. So true or false, US style creatives convert better globally because they're more emotionally expressive.
False. I haven't always seen emotionally expressive perform best.
Okay, interesting. True or false? The same hero image should work equally well in the US, UK, and Germany if the product is identical.
False. Each country is likely having different intent keywords that are driving the sale.
True, false? Most brands underestimate how much creative impacts profitability compared to PPC.
100% true. Across the board.
True or false? The first image is the single most important profit lever on Amazon listing.
False. We've proven that false with our studies on split testing A+ content that's published on our site.
True or false? Most Amazon listings look professional but still don't convert.
False. Most Amazon listings look like garbage.
So definitely will not convert. Okay, wicked. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Daniela. That was incredible. So for brands serious about putting budget behind the creative in order to improve conversion and to improve profitability, how can they find you?
You can find us at mindfulgoods.co. We'll also have, once we release our supplement category report, we'll share it with you guys in the show notes. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in that corner of the internet.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And is there anything that you would like to add, or do you think we've covered everything in terms of creatives and conversion optimization? I think we've covered so much, but is there anything else that
if we added anything else to this podcast, we would need to put it into a part 2, because we are I'm sure we could. If we did one just on storefronts, that would be a whole nother podcast, or one just on split testing would be a whole nother podcast, or one on AI would be a whole nother podcast, which we can do them all.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Daniela.
Likewise. Thank you.